Here's the deal then. Shedeur Sanders, a quarterback, NFL rookie, and certified disruptor systems specialist, just executed what may be the most groundbreaking contract maneuver in the history of professional sports. And no, we're not referring to a gaudy endorsement add-on or some record-breaking bonus. This has nothing to do with earnings. It's about holding onto power. The prime equity clause is introduced. Go ahead and subscribe if you enjoy the real story and all the messy twists that aren't shown on highlight reels. Additionally, you should definitely subscribe if you plan to stay tuned to watch how this Browns quarterback chaos unfolds. At first glance, it appears to be a formal footnote in a courtroom. However, if you look more closely, you'll see that it's more than just a line in Shedeur Sanders' contract. There is a boundary between the NFL as it was and whatever will happen in the future. Because Shedeur partnered with the league rather than merely signing a contract with it. Shedeur entered negotiations as if he owned the building and left with a clause that could move the tectonic plates beneath the NFL's meticulously managed empire, whereas most rookies are content to simply make the roster and grin awkwardly during their first post-game interview. Shedeur receives a percentage from this clause. It's a real portion of all profits made using his name, likeness, and image. That's merchandise. Sponsorships are necessary for that. Broadcast appearances, advertisements, partnerships, content, etc. Shedeur Sanders will profit if the NFL uses him to generate revenue. Suddenly, the NFL's long-standing strategy for managing player branding was destroyed. Let's consider the bigger picture. Rookie contracts are typically strict, regimented, and simplistic, almost military. You play your part and receive your pay, bonuses, and media training. The league promotes you as it sees fit. Your image is decided by the team. The broadcast records your moments, and it's awesome if you go viral. Just be aware that every dollar it makes is going somewhere else. No, we're not doing that, Shedeur responded. His clause completely reverses the situation. He becomes his own economic engine rather than a tool the NFL uses to sell jerseys, draw sponsors, and encourage youth involvement. The NFL owes him more than just a job, and executives are furious because of that. The numbers are already out of control. The $4,600,000, 0 cents value of his rookie contract is not insignificant. However, Shedeur has already earned $14 million, 0 cents from licensing his likeness, personal media, merchandise drops, and brand deals. $14 million, 0 cents, prior to his first start in the regular season. How? Shedeur is more than just a player for that reason. He is a platform. He is in charge of his Twitch, Instagram, YouTube, mini documentaries, and behind-the-scenes vlogs. He has his own editors, media team, and organizational structure. He can tell his story without the league's help. Millions of people are already watching him tell it in real time. Indeed, his brother is a major player in all of this. Shedeur isn't the only one showing off here. Built from the ground up, it is a family-run media empire. Compared to half of the NFL's official productions, their content appears better. It also seems genuine, it seems contemporary, it can communicate in Gen Z and Gen Alpha languages, and you know what? It sells. Sales of his jerseys alone brought in over $250 million, 0 cents. Take a moment to process that. $250 million in merchandise sales for one rookie. And that's more than just a headline now that the prime equity clause is in effect. Shedeur makes money from it. The NFL is subtly freaking out because of this, because this contract gives a player more than just money. It gives him power. Additionally, the NFL is supposed to hold the power in the world. They created a whole system that prioritizes the shield, where the league owns the spotlight, manages the branding, and shapes the story. Yes, players are important, but they should play within the rules. Perform, sign, smile, and repeat. However, Shedeur Sanders quickly changed the course of events and reshaped the relationship between the player and the brand. He didn't enter the NFL with the intention of being managed. He entered to be paired with someone. Now all the other rookies are observing. Notes are being taken by every agent and veteran star who has spent years developing their own personal brand while working under the NFL's machine. The conversation shifted because the contract for the minute was leaked. Forget about CBA talks. Don't worry about revenue splits. Forget about NIL arguments. Why can't I have that is the new topic of discussion. And for NFL executives, that is the worst case scenario. The prime equity clause is contagious, not just disruptive. The NFL loses complete control over how value is structured if this becomes the new norm, in addition to losing control over player branding. Players suddenly turn into their own economies. Teams can't just give money. Based in the NFL must provide partnerships, infrastructure, creative freedom, and answers to questions it never imagined it would have to ask. For example, what happens if the players gain more clout than the league? Shedeur's model is similar to that of international sports stars. Consider LeBron James, who meticulously manages his narrative and owns media brands and production companies. Consider Cristiano Ronaldo, whose personal social media accounts bring in more money than some teams do in a season. In the NFL, Shadeur's deal sows the same seed, and it's spreading. There is now a serious threat to the NFL's meticulously maintained world, where the shield always shines brighter even when the star players shine. From within, not from the outside. What's even more bizarre is that this wasn't the result of a union revolt. Years of negotiating were not necessary. Collective bargaining did not force it. One rookie knew his value and refused to play the old game, which is why it happened. It worked, which is perhaps the league's scariest aspect. The provision was accepted. The merchandise is booming. The fans are enthralled. The funds are genuine. The precedent has now been established. The NFL isn't merely irritated because of this. They're terrified, worried that the blueprint will be based on the Shedeur Sanders model, that media teams will arrive with future rookies, that gamers will ask for the rights to their content, that NIL ownership will stop being a luxury and start becoming the norm. The NFL's entire business model changes. As a result of the decentralization of power, it won't go from the league to the teams and then to the players. Through their voices, brands, and equity, it will ascend from the players in the opposite direction. Suddenly, the NFL turns into something it never desired to be, a player's business, rather than the player's business. Now what? You can't exactly put the genie back in the bottle if you're the NFL. Shedeur has a legitimate contract. He has a thriving empire. The influence is growing, and the numbers are available to the public. Will the league oppose it? Will they adjust, try to keep future players in the box Shedeur just blew open, or try to tighten rookie contracts in the upcoming round of negotiations? Because this is the truth. The supporters are already on board. They adore Shedeur. They adore the authenticity, personality, and accessibility. The NFL's polished clips are not what they want. They want to hear Shedeur's story through his terms, voice, and camera. And the league will lose if they attempt to contain that. Not just viewers, not just sales of merchandise, they will become irrelevant. Because this is about evolution, not just one player. Shedeur Sanders as well. He represents the future. The NFL can either support it or oppose it. Leave a comment with your thoughts. If you're following this revolution, hit subscribe because of what Shedeur just accomplished. Okay, so let's dissect this since it becomes more erratic the further you go. We are not merely discussing a shrewd rookie who discovered a weakness in the system. We're talking about a rookie athlete who grasped a concept that most athletes have struggled to grasp for decades. It all comes down to ownership. Take charge of the story, manage the value. Manage the value, manage the leverage. Manage the leverage. You are now altering the game rather than merely playing it. And Shedeur Sanders flipped the table like it was his coffee table in the living room. After entering the most influential sports league on the planet, he asked for more favorable terms than that. He didn't wait for approval. The terms were dictated by him. The fact that he did it without blinking is even more horrifying, at least for the NFL. No legal disputes, holdouts, leaks, or scandals. They said, okay, that moment, that quiet approval of the prime equity clause, that was the sound of a dam breaking, because now everyone else in the building is turning to look. He entered, laid out the blueprint, and explained how it would operate. Meetings were being called by agents. College athletes are reviewing their draft tactics. Why didn't I get a clause like that is the question that veterans are sending to their representatives via text, and with good cause. Shedeur simply drew a line and declared not anymore, even though the league has long benefited from the skill, vigor, and likeness of its players. Not unless I'm cut. Let's avoid confusion. This goes beyond money. This has to do with autonomy, agency, and the capacity to create something that transcends football. A 10-year career is not what Shedeur is betting on. He is creating a brand that will last for 50 years. He is aware that modern athletes are evaluated on more than just their numbers. They are evaluated based on their narrative, their presence, and the way they influence culture beyond the white line. Additionally, the NFL has always done a good job of limiting players to roles that suit the brand. What occurs, though, if the player turns into the brand? Shedeur has done just that. He's not merely keeping his nil under control, he is in charge of the medium. It passes via his Instagram. It belongs to him. His YouTube videos are entirely his and fully monetized. He is directly impacted by sponsorship deals, no brand approvals or league red tape. There's nothing to clean up, so he doesn't need a public relations team. On platforms that the NFL cannot access, he is the one sharing his story in real time with millions of fans. The league is also unable to keep up. They have spent decades creating a system that uses strict structure, image control, and contracts to hold players accountable. Shedeur, however, attends a different school. Personality is not a liability in the environment he comes from, it's money. And that kind of awareness is priceless. Are you curious about the strength of this change? At the moment, Shedeur Sanders has more social media clout than whole NFL teams. His engagement has skyrocketed compared to most team YouTube channels. His vlogs attract a younger audience, and when he talks, people pay attention, not because a brand told them to, but because his audience has directly given him their trust. The NFL detests acknowledging this fact. Leverage is equal to influence. Influence travels more quickly than legacy in the modern world. A guy filming a Q&A from his hotel room will receive more clicks than someone with a Hall of Fame bust. And Shedeur excels at it more than anyone else in his rookie class. He's not just a league player, he also plays outside of it. Additionally, he is winning both games. However, since this isn't happening in a vacuum, let's talk about impact. Yes, the NFL is a billion-dollar machine, but it's also fragile. It is based on regular control and regulation. The foundation begins to sway the moment players realize they can go straight to the consumer and bring the fans along with them, and they don't have to sign their names away to succeed. Executives are already discussing containment tactics in whispers behind closed doors. They use that phrase. Translation, how can we prevent the spread of this Shudder stuff? However, it's too late. The toothpaste cannot be reinserted into the tube. A player cannot be unsold on freedom, and the NFL will appear to be a league terrified of change if they attempt to stop this with stricter regulations or restricted media rights, just as Shudder's contract revealed. Fans aren't dumb either. They are aware that this is a business. They can tell when a player is being boxed out. Additionally, they no longer purchase the team's first line, not when the person being sidelined just raised the standard for what it means to be an athlete who is empowered. The league now appears outdated, inflexible, and reactive as a result of this entire situation. Even though he hasn't yet played a single regular season game, Shedeur is out here dictating the terms, managing his reputation, and making a ton of money. It's more than just a flex, it's a blueprint. It will now spread like wildfire. You don't think this isn't being watched by the next generation of college stars? Do you not think that agents are highlighting the prime equity clause in neon and printing out Shedeur's contract? The new gold standard is this. Things are going to get really interesting over the next few years. Because the NFL has functioned as the final boss, the destination, and the grand stage for decades. However, Shedeur and other players are changing that perception. They are no longer pursuing the league. Their own stages are becoming larger, quicker, and more widely accessible. The NFL only becomes one part of their story, not the entire narrative. The league is aware of this. They are furious because of this. Because money isn't the only factor here. It has to do with losing control, authority over the telling of stories, authority over who receives attention, authority over the ecosystem they have possessed for many generations. He doesn't want their ecosystem, though, Shedeur. He's creating his own, in which he controls the equity, the story, the content, and perhaps most dangerously, He's only just getting started. What occurs then if the next Shedeur shows up with the same demands? What happens if brand independence, media control, and zero ownership are no longer the exception but the rule? What happens if novices start making their own tables instead of requesting a seat at the table? This is what occurs. The game is permanently altered, and the NFL has the option of adapting or falling behind. Let's not mince words. It's a revolution. The NFL is aware of this. They sense it. Through those shiny office towers on Park Avenue, you can almost smell the panic. A senior executive is looking at a PowerPoint slide called Player Autonomy Risk Matrix somewhere right now, wondering how a 21-year-old with a camera crew and a marketing vision just outsmarted the league. And what do you know? This isn't a coincidence or a fortunate branding move, which makes it hilarious. Shedeur Sanders is playing a long game that has been planned for years. He didn't decide to become a brand one morning. Long before the league had a chance to show him a generic promo reel, he pieced it together digitally. Let's go back a bit. Shedeur was recording everything prior to the NFL draft, while other rookies shared humble boasts about working out in silence and gym selfies. Not in an awkward influencer manner, but rather in a smart, purposeful, I own my story manner. He was aware of what the NFL would attempt, mold him into a marketable figure that complemented the machine, the brand, and the atmosphere. Shedeur isn't a character though, he is the one who created it. And the league didn't anticipate that distinction. They believed they were making a quarterback signing. They received a whole business. A player entered the league and said, here's how my system works, rather than asking how they could fit into yours. You have the option to participate or not. The most amazing thing is that it's working. There is a line of sponsors. Products are flying off the shelves. Internet culture and mainstream media are on his side. Fans know they're watching something new, so every time he shares something, even a video of him wearing sunglasses and a hoodie as he walks into practice, it goes viral. It's more than just hype. Charm alone isn't enough. It's the architecture of a brand, and Shedeur is developing it in real time with complete control over each pixel and no assistance from the NFL. The NFL has been able to rely on one basic truth for decades, which has rattled the old guard. The league is always the main attraction. The shield endures forever, but players come and go. They have managed to keep control of the narrative up to this point, despite surviving scandals, protests, labor disputes, and even lawsuits, because the story now exists outside the structure. It is evident in Shedeur's vlogs, podcast interviews, and mic'd up moments. They are unable to regain that power. Furthermore, it is no longer merely theory. It's not a possibility. Someday isn't here. Now is the time. There's a reason why Shedeur hasn't received the same level of attention from the NFL as other high-profile rookies. Flashes of genius, a few viral moments, and then a safe place in the PR strategy. You know the ones. Because Shedeur is uncontrollable, they're unsure of what to do. Not in a crazy, insane way, but in the riskiest way a legacy organization can. They are not necessary for him. Consider that. How recently did the NFL have a standout rookie that they were unable to shape, not only unable to control, but also unable to own, rebrand, or filter? Shedeur has a larger fan base than the majority of the outlets present when he enters the room on media day. He doesn't need to get along with his fans. Since he revealed his identity to them without the league's consent, they are already on his side. The NFL is currently torn between two unfeasible options. Option A, accept it, adjust, permit additional parties to bargain for media autonomy, nil rights, and equity. Let the doors open, split the limelight, give up command. Choice B, hold on tight, push back. Act as though Shedeur is an exception. Teams should be quietly warned not to consider similar clauses. Keep your ranks close. The issue? The league is not adequately protected by either choice. They lose control if they adjust. They risk becoming irrelevant if they don't comply. Because the athletes of the future don't want to be polished robots anymore, whether they like it or not. They aspire to be CEOs, moguls, and creators. And Shedeur just demonstrated that even as a rookie, it is possible. What comes next? Now, let's zoom out. Consider yourself a collegiate athlete who is witnessing all of this. College football already uses nil, but it's still disorganized, ad hoc, and brittle. After that, you witness Shedeur enter the professional world and not only preserve, but also increase his independence. That's the model for everyone, not just quarterbacks, linebackers, safeties, edge rushers, and receivers. Why would you ever give up your voice, your brand, or your fan base? Why would you never again sign a typical rookie contract? The NFL is in serious trouble right here because athletes aren't going back once they realize they can be both athletes and business owners. Just because that's how it's done doesn't mean they're giving up the rights to their name, image, and likeness. If Shedeur can get it, why can't I? They will inquire. They don't want you to, and that's the only truthful explanation, because the NFL is a completely different league the instant that dam breaks. And notice, we're not claiming that the league will fall apart in a flash. It's too big to fail so quickly. However, we assert that the NFL's monopoly on the player brand pipeline is no longer in place. Sundays may still belong to them, but Shedeur Sanders is the owner of everything else: the future, the discourse, the culture. He is now the prototype, the reference point, the mold. And that is the main reason the league is worried, because they have a system in place that functions best when players don't ask questions, and Shedeur's ask all of them successfully, loudly, and in public. Now what? We're watching in real time as the NFL deals with a problem it has never really had to deal with before. A player who has leverage right away, a player with the ability to refuse, a player who can win even if they leave the machine. And you're not listening if you don't think that scares the authorities. And now for your last query. Would you like to see more Shedeur-like players? Would you like a league in which the stars are in charge of their own destiny? Or are you sticking with a system that only functions when players don't move because the game has changed in any case? Additionally, Shedeur Sanders is already 3 steps ahead. So fasten your seatbelt. This goes beyond a simple contract. There is a countdown.